In this video, you're going to create your first JavaScript program. So the first thing we're going to do, just to make sure that our work is well organized, we're going to create a folder, JavaScript. You can place that in your desktop if you like. And then inside this folder, we're going to create a new folder for each chapter. So this will make it easy for you to review any concepts that you learned in the course. So we're going to create a new folder, Introduction. Okay. And then we're going to open this folder using brackets. So what you can do, you can just open brackets and then drag and drop the folder right there. And then it's going to be opened using brackets. Right? So now, inside this folder, we're going to have our program files. So you will find the starting files attached to this lecture. So I suggest you copy the zipped file and then unzip it and copy it inside the introduction folder, like that. All right. So now we've got our starting code. So we've got our HTML file and our JavaScript file. So at the moment, the JavaScript file is empty, and we've got a basic HTML web page. All right. So now I'm just gonna split my screen into 2 bits. And then I'm going to open the index.html file using Chrome. All right, so that's our web page. It's pretty basic, and you don't need to know a lot about HTML and CSS to understand this program. You just need the basics. So I'm going to go through this quickly. So we're defining the document type here, and we are setting it to HTML, which refers to HTML5. And then we've got the HTML tags, which will include the content of the web page. So then we've got inside the head and the body. So inside the head, you place different information about the web page, like the character encoding, the title, which you can see right there, some styling. Okay, so we've got some CSS styling there. So we colored the heading using a nice color. And then you've got the body, where you have all the visible content, the heading, which you can see right there. So that's our JavaScript file. And we said earlier that normally JavaScript is embedded into HTML code. So how are we going to embed our JavaScript code into HTML? So what you need to do is add a script element at the end of the body element, like that. So then you're going to set the source of the script to your JavaScript file, like that. Right. So now your HTML file and your JavaScript file are linked. All right. Now you don't need to specify the type of your scripts, because by default, any script that you embed to HTML is going to be a JavaScript script by default. All right, so now you are ready to write JavaScript code inside the JavaScript file. All right, so let's write something really simple. So we just want to show an alert message saying hi. So to do that, you can use a simple line of code. So we're just going to go to the window object and alert hi, like that. So for now, you don't have to worry too much about the syntax, but just remember that we ended our line of code using a semicolon. All right. So now if I refresh the page, you'll see an alert when the page loads. That's saying hi. So the way this works is after the page renders, or the browser renders the different elements of the body, then at the end, it will find the script. Then it's gonna read the script line by line. So the first line is just a comment because it's preceded by 2 forward slashes. So it doesn't count. So JavaScript is going to move to the next line, and it's got a line of code which is asking the browser to execute a task which is to alert this message. And JavaScript will just go ahead and execute that task for you. And that's how it works. Now let's do something different. Let's bring something into the console. So first, let's show our console. So we're going to go to the developer tools. And here is our console. You just click on console or the console tab to bring up the console. So to print something in the console, we're going to use another function, console.log. So again, you don't have to worry about the syntax. Just remember that we're going to place what we want to print inside the log function like that. So let's say, welcome to JavaScript. So now this is going to be printed in the console like that. And you can see the order of how JavaScript, the order of execution. So at the beginning, we got the alert message and we don't see anything there. And then once we click on OK, then JavaScript will move to the next lines. And then it's going to show the message or print it in the console for us. Okay. Now the console is very important in JavaScript, and that's one of the very useful tools provided by Google Chrome, because it will help us test our code and debug it as well. Now, let's say that we've got an error in our code. So instead of console.log, I write log without O. So now if I run my code, I'm going to get an error right there. And it's telling me that in line 5, there is an error. So this is something very important. So just remember how to debug your code. If you run your JavaScript code and something unexpected happens, then you would need to go straight away to the console and check if there are any errors there. Like in our example here, we've got an error in line 5, and it's saying here that's console.lg is not a function, because lg obviously is not a function. It needs to be log like that. And now it's supposed to work. Now a quick note about syntax. JavaScript is quite tolerant when it comes to the syntax compared to other languages. So for example, later on in the next chapter, you will learn variables. So without diving into details, to declare a variable and set it to a new value, you can do something like this. So for now, you don't have to worry about the syntax. But this is the correct syntax of declaring a variable and initializing it to a value, which you will learn in the next chapter. Now, if you write something like this, it should work because your syntax is correct. But if you don't use the var keyword, JavaScript will tolerate that and your code will still work, although your syntax is not that good. Now, if you want to avoid this, you can use something we call strict or strict mode. Now in strict mode, JavaScript will not allow you to do certain things like this and will not allow bad code. So if you try this, then you will get an error. It says X is not defined. So just remember how to use the strict mode if you want to make sure that your JavaScript code is secure. Now, this really helps if you're managing a team of JavaScript developers and you want them to follow strict rules when writing JavaScript. But in normal scenarios, you can still go with the normal mode, like that. And you won't get an error if you write something like this. It's still preferable that you declare your variables, and you will learn this in the next chapter.